We need to talk about Ironjawz. I don't even know how to begin a video like this. I wanted to talk about the Ironjawz army and where the army has landed post all of these like shakeups, right? Like since we had these new battle tactics and these new units and all this new stuff, and I wanted to take to like, what does Ironjawz actually look like right now, right? So let's look at some maths. So this is all from Warhammer, so go check out Warhammer, give them a sub, check out their website, do whatever it is they tell you to do. So if we look on the graph on the left here, Ironjawz, I believe that this first number is how many armies were actually like in the like representation, like how many were actually involved in the calculations. And you can see that we're actually fairly underrepresented, right? Like Blades of Khorne is very popular with 109, Seraphon's really popular, right? So like Gravelords is really popular, Gits is really popular, right? So their representation in the meta is quite high, but ours is quite low at 42. Kruleboyz at 41, right? Very unpopular armies. I get why. And Bone Splitters isn't even on this list, right? Bone Splitters isn't even on the list. They don't even count them, right? And then over on the right, these are like players with 5 up wins, 4 up wins, and 3 up wins. So if we're just looking at the gray bars, right, we see Nurgle being very high, 10.4%. Big Waaagh, thank goodness, being also quite high. But Ironjawz is sitting quite low, right? We have that 42, 43% win ratio, but also the number of lists that are going 5-0 is quite low, right? Like Sons of Behemoth is really bad. That's to be expected. Lumineth doing pretty bad. Slaves of Darkness doing pretty bad. Ooh, look at this. Stormcast Eternals. Huge meta representation, very low win rate. Sorry, boys. Kruleboyz, right? So obviously the army isn't doing very well, which is counterintuitive because whenever armies get new models, whenever armies get new books, new rules, they tend to do very well. So Ironjawz just got 3 big pigs, new Artboys, 2 new brutes, and 2 new foot heroes. So we just got 8 new war scrolls. We just got 8 new war scrolls, and we suck. Ironjawz is not doing very well. I don't even know if any of these models are even really playable. To be frank, I think that Artboys are good in Big Waaagh. I think they might be a touch too expensive, but I personally, like, I finished my league and I went 4-1 playing Big Waaagh, and I was playing 2 units of Artboys and a reinforced unit of brutes, and I found that Artboys with Stickas are good. Right? Like, I don't want to charge into people in a Big Waaagh list with Artboys. I want to sit and have them charge me for a couple different reasons. One reason is because I play 6 Bolt Boys, so Unleash Hell is an option, right? Having a line of Bolt Boys behind a line of Artboys is good. And second, Big Waaagh is a slapback army. You're a castle, and so it means that I can measure out my ranges really efficiently. So I can have a 2 units of Artboys covering 2 sides, and then I can have, for example, a Wurgog Prophet in between, and I can measure out my Wurgog Stare ability. And if anybody comes into my Artboys, not only are they going to get +1 rend for attacking a unit that charged, but I'm also going to have everything within range for when it's my turn and I want to slap back. And Artboys having a 3-up save is solid. Like it's good. You know, they might be a touch too expensive, but in Big Waaagh, they're fantastic. But if we look at them in Ironjawz, it's like they're too slow. They're just too slow. You know, like, I don't think that any of the new stuff makes any of the new sub-factions better than Bloodtooth. I'm pretty sure that Bloodtooth is still the best. Like, Zogrok is too expensive, and it's like, yes, he has this interesting buff, and, you know, 6 pigs. Like, it's good on 6 pigs, but I just don't know where you find the room in the lists for him. Like, he's 3 pigs. Wouldn't you just rather have 3 pigs? Who else is there? The Artboy boss. So the Artboy boss, I mean, his points are fine, right? Like 100 points. You know, sure. The shield bash ability doesn't add all that much, right? Like, oops, he doesn't add all that much. It's a little bit of extra damage for the shield bash ability. The rally ability, I think, is best in Big Wa for the same reasons I was saying before. It's like you charge into my Artboys. Fine. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to retreat them out of combat on my turn, right? Because they no longer charged, so I'm no longer getting that rend buff. So I'm just going to retreat them till they're at 3 inches and then rally them on your turn. Right? Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull them back. You're going to kill 7 of them. I'm going to pull them back. I'm going to rally them on a 5-up. And I'm going to wait for you to charge into me again. And I'm going to do the same unleash out. Like, that's what I'm going to do. To me, that seems like where he's at his best. As, like, a defensive castle. Right? But even then, it's like in Big Wa, you just don't have the hero slots. And if that's what you're doing in Ironjawz, then you're not doing Ironjawz justice. You're not playing Ironjawz right. Right, retreating out of combat to rally in an Iron Suns, like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it's very good. And I mean, the Rekkas are not very good because the Ragers are just better. The Ragers, in my opinion, are the actual winners. I think that Brute Ragers are actually really, really good. I mean, if we wanted to, I mean, I've done videos on this before, but I mean, if we look at their damage, right, like the Brute Ragers actually, you can see them right down here. They actually are quite good. This is way too small. You can't see that. But the Brute Ragers actually hit pretty hard, right? Like, for 100 points, they're sitting at 6.7 damage per 100 points. And as you can see across here, it's like Gruntas are sitting at half of that without any buffs, right? And they're set, like, because the points are so low. Like, Ragers actually out damage unbuffed Gruntas, and they're 100 points instead of 170 points. They're not as many wounds. They're not as good of a save. They don't have as good a movement speed. But if what you want is a good clap back counter charge unit, well, Ragers are your winners here. You know, if you're playing Big Wa and you have a, you know, like a castle set up, and then all of a sudden someone's gonna throw something at you, and you want to have something that can, like, counter charge, you know, like run around the outside and charge in and slap, well, Ragers are going to do that, and they're going to do that best of anything that we have access to. The only problem with Ragers is that's all that they can do. They have no other function. They have a very specific role. They have a very niche way of being played, and outside of that, there's nothing going on, right? As opposed to pigs, where because pigs have such a fast movement speed, they're able to you know, like, be more aggressive. They're able to move around the board. They're able to set up for surround and destroy. They're able to do whatever it is that you need them to do. And when they're reinforced and you give them all of the buffs, they are going to do significantly more damage. Not more damage per point, right? But with, you know, they're going to be able to do a lot more total damage. So, yeah, let's look at some lists. So, I mean, no, before we look at lists, okay, so the new units that we got in Ironjawz have not made a significant impact on the army. One of the reasons that I think that the Ironjawz have gone down in the meta is because people are playing the new units in either Dachappas or Iron Suns, and they're not winning, right? They're not winning their games, because I think that these sub-factions and the lists that come with them are strictly worse than any of the other options that we have available, specifically Bloodtooth. So here's why, okay? So if you're playing a Dachappa's list, what Dachappa's does is whenever you give Violent Fury from a War Chanter, you give it 3 times instead of 1, as long as you're giving it to something that has the Brute or the Artboys line. So that includes Ragers, Rekkas, Brutes, and Artboys. So whenever you do it, you can give it to 3 units instead of 1 unit. Okay, so if you have 2 War Chanters, that means you can do it 6 times. So if you have 2 War Chanters, you can give it to everybody. Okay, so you're giving it to 6 instead of 2. Okay, like, is that really necessary? What if you want to give it to a unit of pigs or a Maw Crusher? Right? Suddenly, you're not getting the benefit of the subfaction. Right? So it's like sometimes it's actually going to work against you. You know, it's kind of limiting what your list can actually be. It's like Brute and Artboy spam. Okay, but they're way too slow. They're way too slow. So as you march up the map, your opponent is going to have the opportunity to spread out and do whatever it is that they want to do. They're going to have the ability to cast spells at you, to shoot you. They're going to have the ability to come to you and charge at you and get their charge buffs off, right? Like Fulminator's coming in on the charge, you know, suddenly you're melting. So it's just too slow. It's just too slow. And you don't have a lot of tools. Like the thing about Big Wa is that you have a lot of tools. You have all these casters that you have access to. You have monsters that you have access to, like Cruel Boys monsters. You have like Gobsprak and all those tools. You have Bolt Boys. You have, and then all the Ironjawz tools that you have. But if you're playing Dachappas, it's like, okay, you got Brutes, you got Ragers, you got Artboys, like, and then what? That's it. So you're just, if you're a sitting duck in the middle of the map, that's all that you are. That game is a sitting duck in the middle of the map. Ooh, they have +1 damage. It's like, well, it's not going to be very effective if your opponent gets to dictate the pace of the game. It's a game about movement. Mighty Destroyers just doesn't cut it. Mighty Destroyers gives you an extra 4 inches. Cool. Turns 4 into 8-inch move. Cool. Pigs still move faster than that. They move 9. So it's like you're turning 4 into 8, but with pigs, you're turning 9 into 18. Like, we're talking about a 10-inch move increase compared to Artboys and Brutes. 10 inches. Age of Sigmar is a game about movement, right? So, like, what are we doing if we're marching slowly up the board? Like, we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything. And then you have Iron Suns. Iron Suns, I think, is the worst Ironjawz subfaction. In fact, I think, you know, like, let's even put that in our slides. How about? It's like, you know, Iron Suns is worse than Dachappas, is worse than Bloodtooth. So the reason that I think Iron Suns is the worst is because your opponent gets to play around it the most. So you start your game, you tell or let's say you're playing against Iron Suns, and it's like, cool, like, what does your army do? And you're like, well, I'm slow, I'm not particularly survivable, right? It's like I have these Artboys that are 3-ups and everything else is on a 4-up or worse. And what I can do is on your turn for a command point, so you can do it to multiple units. Let's assume you're playing a Maw Crusher, right? So on your turn, I can charge you. So what does that mean? So as your opponent, I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, well, okay. So that means that if I don't want you to countercharge me, I just have to stay like 10, 11, 12 plus inches away from you. Okay. So if I don't want you to countercharge me, I'm just going to keep my distance. Okay. I can do that. It means that, like, what does it really mean? You're turning off retreats unless they have a movement speed of like 9 or 10 or more. So most of the time you're going to turn off their ability to retreat from you because they're going to move and then you're going to charge them. Okay. That's all. That's it. If your opponent got to 3 inches of you and wanted to charge you and failed their charge with Snake Eyes, and then you charge them back, they wanted to charge you anyway. They wanted to get stuck in with you anyway. And so your opponent, or me as your opponent, it's like, well, okay. Like, I wanted to fight. Maybe you denied them some space. Like, maybe they wanted to charge onto you so that they're on an objective, and instead you countercharged them and denied them that space. But that's all. Like, that's it. It's like you don't get to retreat, and then sometimes I'm going to get to deny some space from you. That's all. Right? Like, all your opponent has to do is kite you, because you're slow. You're stuck in the middle of the map. Like, whatever. I'm just going to play around you as... I'm going to play around that mechanic as your opponent because I know exactly what it does. I know what you want to do. And I can just kind of do it and, you know, like, whatever. And you have to spend a command point. So, you know, it's not like it's just like you get to counter charge. That's what it should be, to be honest. You know. And it should be 3d6 charge. Then maybe we could talk. But Bloodtooth is still our best one. Because the Gore-gruntas are tried and true. They've been tested. Gore-gruntas are really good. They're fast. They take Hoarfrost really well. They take Violent Fury really well. You know, with a teleport and Mighty Destroyers, they can get a 3-inch charge. You know, like they're kind of just getting everything that you want. They're just significantly better. Like Gore-gruntas just by themselves are better, right? Like they're more useful. They do these impact hits, and that's whatever. They have interesting bases, so you can kind of turn them sideways and screen things out and take up more space. They, yeah, I mean, like they're just good. Really, what it comes down to is their ability to move 18 inches across the board before they charge. That's a lot of movement speed. So, and they have like little tricks. Like I said, teleport, Mighty Destroyer's 3-inch charge is good. So at the end of the combat phase, friendly Gore-gruntas that fought in that phase and are within 3 inches of an enemy unit can make a pylon move, or if they're not, they can make a normal move, or they can attempt to charge. So you're getting stuck in. You're going to keep fighting with these units. It's good. It also means that if you do a big, like let's say it's your turn and you do a big Hoarfrost, Violent Fury buff, even Zogrog, let's say, and you throw them in and they kill something, well, at the end of my turn, I'm able to move them further so that on my opponent's turn, they're still stuck in and have to fight pigs. They're not going to get a chance to, like, this. I mean, charging in the combat phase gets around Unleash Hell. Like, it does a lot of stuff for us here. And then, moreover, if we think about the core mechanics of Ironjawz, Mighty Destroyers, Smashin' and Bashin', Ironjawz Wa. Okay, Mighty Destroyers is most effective and efficient on units that have higher movement speed because we're increasing, we get to move them. And so if you have a 4-inch, let's say, move, for a command point, I'm only getting 4 additional inches of movement. But on a Gore-grunta, I'm getting 9 additional inches of movement. So Mighty Destroyers is actually best used on fast units. Cool. Pigs win. Smashin' and Bashin'. Okay, so Smashin' and Bashin' is best used when you have multiple fights, right? When you're fighting 3-4 different units in a turn, and they are reinforced units, right? Because they're going to be able to pump out more damage, and they're buffed up units so that they can pump out more damage so that you can chain activate these different units. Cool. Gore-gruntas win that too. Because Gore-gruntas have way more movement speed, you're able to dictate the pacing of the game, when and where fights are happening. So Smashin' and Bashin' is best used with like Maw Crushes and pigs. Like a unit of 6 buffed up pigs, like 2 times 6 Violent Furied pigs, 1 with Hoarfrost, and a Maw Crusher, Pop and Destroyer. All 3 of those units are going to get a fight one after the other, and they're probably going to just kill whatever thing is in front of them, and then the 2 units of pigs are going to move in even further into your opponent. Like, you don't even have to... That Maw Crusher can just be sitting in the back and watching, right? The idea with this Smashin' and Bashin' is that you're going to get way more damage. Like, you're going to trade more efficiently. It's like, I'm just going to deal a bunch of damage to you, and then... like, you're going to hit me back, but you might not even be able to hit me back because there's nothing in front of me. Don't forget, too, that the Bloodtooth ability is at the end of the combat phase. So it's not like you fight and then pile in and then your opponent gets to hit you back. It's like at the very end of all this, right? So, again. And then third, the Ironjawz Wa. +1 to charge and 1 additional rend. So the Ironjawz Wa works really well with Smashin' and Bashin' in that when you're getting that additional rend... then you're able to kill things and chain activate Smash and Bastion even better. But again, Bloodtooth or Gore-Gruntas are the best unit to use in this instance because, just like before, if you're able to dictate the pace, if I'm like, okay, well, this turn, I'm sending in 4 units. And I can do that because I can Mighty Destroyer move them, and then I can wah and charge with like small charges on 4 fronts, and then get in, and then activate or chain activate Smash and Bastion. Like, you're just gonna clear the board. It's no problem. So, I mean, I don't even know what to say about how to improve this for Ironjawz. It's like the big pigs were kind of supposed to be an interesting way of improving Bloodtooth. I was certain, sorry, I shouldn't say I was certain. I was hopeful that the Tusk boss was going to unlock Gore-Gruntas as battle line. And so we could say like, well, actually, you don't have to take Bloodtooth. You can take Iron Suns, and you can still have these pigs as battle line units. And then we can, you know, like go from there. But these big pigs have been such a flop. Such a flop. I don't even know. I mean, like, you can watch all my videos about the big pigs, but they're, like, big pigs are just, they're just bad. Right? They're just bad. So, I don't know. How, like, what do you even do about it, right? Like, nerf Gore-Gruntas? Can't do that. Their Ironjawz don't win very much. If anything, we need a buff to it. I don't know. Like, to be totally honest, I don't think the Choppas and Iron Suns is going to be viable until we get a new book. Like, maybe Mighty Destroyers moves faster. You know, the slower you are, the faster you go, or some other kinds of tricks. Something. I don't even know. Maybe like, I mean, who even knows? Anyway, I'm gonna make another video about Ironjawz lists, so you should definitely check that out. But until then, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, what?